Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're taking a deep dive into something a listener sent our way. It's Psalm 16 from the New Living Translation of the Bible.
Yeah, this one's got a lot packed in it.
It does, and I'm really excited to kind of unpack it all with you.
Yeah.
So this psalm is attributed to David, and it's got this interesting little title, right? Miktham?
Right, and no one's entirely sure what that means. It could be a literary term,
Yep.
a certain style of writing, or it could be a musical notation, like a cue for how it was meant to be sung or chanted.
Interesting. So you're saying like we don't know if it's like a genre or like an instrument or something?
Yeah, something like that. We just don't have enough information to say for sure.
Yeah.
But what's really fascinating is what the psalm itself has to say. It's full of these really timeless insights. Even though it's written thousands of years ago.
Absolutely, and that's what we're here for, right? To sort of uncover those insights. So let's jump right in. Keep me safe, O God, for I have come to you for refuge. I said to the Lord, you are my master. Every good thing I have comes from you. So right off the bat, there's this very personal appeal for protection and this acknowledgement that God is the source of all good. What stands out to you in these opening lines?
Well, for me, it's the directness and intimacy of it. David's not just acknowledging a higher power. He's actively seeking shelter in God. He's grounding his entire sense of well-being in this relationship with God.
So it's not just like a concept. It's like a very lived experience.
Exactly. It speaks to that deep human need for security and a recognition that we're not self-sufficient. We need something bigger than ourselves to rely on.
Right. And then he moves on to the community, right?
Sure.
Verse 3, the godly people in the land are my true heroes. I take pleasure in them. So how do you see this connection between personal faith and valuing the community?
It's such an important point. A healthy spiritual life isn't lived in isolation. David finds strength and joy in the company of like-minded individuals. There's this sense of shared values, mutual support. It's all part of the journey.
So it's like finding your people, right?
Yeah.
Like those who are on a similar path.
Exactly. It's about connection and belonging and how that strengthens faith.
And then there's this really stark contrast in verse 4. Troubles multiply for those who chase after other gods. I will not take part in their sacrifices of blood or even speak the names of their gods. It's like a firm line in the sand. What do you make of this unwavering commitment?
Well, I think it underscores the idea of focused intention. David is making a conscious choice about where he's going to place his devotion, his energy. And he seems to be recognizing that divided loyalties can lead to trouble.
So it's like saying, okay, this is where I stand, this is what I believe in, and there's no wavering.
Exactly. It's about clarity and commitment.
Okay, now verses 5 and 6 get really poetic. Lord, you alone are my inheritance, my cup of blessing. You guard all that is mine. The land you have given me is a pleasant land. What a wonderful inheritance. This image of God as an inheritance is so powerful. What do you think it's saying about what truly sustains us?
Well, you have to remember back then, land and lineage were absolutely central to a person's identity and security. So this metaphor of God as inheritance would have had this huge resonance.
So it's like saying God is the ultimate source of provision and security.
Exactly. It's saying that true, lasting provision, it doesn't come from earthly possessions alone. It comes from this divine connection.
And then in verse 7, we get this idea of inner guidance. I will bless the Lord who guides me. Even at night, my heart instructs me. That's really interesting. What do you think this means for us today?
It speaks to this idea of internalized wisdom, this deep-seated sense of what's right and true that can emerge even when we're not actively seeking it.
So it's like trusting your gut instinct.
Yeah, in a way. But it's also about cultivating that inner voice through reflection prayer, really paying attention to what feels right.
So it's a combination of intuition and spiritual practice.
Exactly. And then in verse 8, it's so powerful and direct. I know the Lord is always with me. I will not be shaken, for he is right beside me. This feeling of unwavering presence, it must be incredibly comforting.
It's like an anchor in a storm.
Yeah.
Right? It's knowing you're not alone no matter what.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that leads us to the emotional response in verse 9. No wonder my heart is glad, and I rejoice. My body rests in safety. There's a footnote here about the Greek version, which reads, and my tongue shouts his praises. And it connects this to Acts 2.26. What do you think this adds to our understanding?
Interesting. So it's like it's not just an inner feeling of joy. It's also about outward expression.
Right. It's about sharing that joy, whether it's through quiet contentment or, actively praising God.
And that connection to Acts, it suggests this hope that extends beyond just this earthly life.
Exactly. It hints at something more to come.
Okay, which brings us to those really powerful verses 10 and 11. For you will not leave my soul among the dead or allow your Holy One to rot in the grave. You will show me the way of life, granting me the joy of your presence and the pleasures of living with you forever. And again, there's a footnote linking the Greek version to Acts 2.28, emphasizing the way of life and joy. What do you think this is pointing to?
Well, while David is speaking from his own experience, his current situation, these verses also have this prophetic dimension. They suggest a triumph over death and a fullness of life that's found in God's presence.
So it's like a glimpse of eternity.
Exactly.
Wow. So for everyone listening, as we wrap up this deep dive into Psalm 16, we've uncovered these core themes, finding refuge in God, the importance of community-focused commitment, the security of having God as your inheritance, inner guidance, unwavering presence, and this really profound sense of joy and hope for the future.
And what's so striking is how these ancient human longings, for safety, belonging, purpose, they still resonate so powerfully with us today.
Absolutely. So as you go about your day, think about how this desire for refuge and lasting joy plays out in your own life. Whatever your beliefs might be, what do you consider your true inheritance? What brings you a sense of security and purpose that lasts? It's something worth reflecting on for sure.
Definitely food for thought.
Thanks for joining us today on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.
See you then.